welcome back everyone for another episode of Chasing Ghosts. This is the video series where I talk about those hard to find, those impossible to find comics, those books you just don't see at your LCS when you go there on Wednesday to pick up your new releases. These are some comics that are really tough. You got to get lucky, do some legwork, and do some, hustling to kind of track them down sometimes. With that said, hopefully you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Make sure that you like, you subscribe, you hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And if you want to see this week's selection of books, I got a couple new ones and a couple of throwbacks for you. Just hang on for a few seconds after the intro, and I will be right back. All right, so as I mentioned there in the intro, I got a couple of new ones and a couple of throwbacks for you this week. So let's just get right into it and see if we can make this a quick little video for you guys. Our first one up is coming to us. Oh, let's see what we got here. All right, this is going to be a new one for you. We're going to go back to Transformers and G.I. Joe, the crossover event from IDW way back. Now, this isn't the first time they crossed over. It's not the original Marvel one. It's not even the first Devil's Due. I'm sorry, this was Devil's Due, not the IDW. It's not even the first Devil's Due one. This is the second one, the Black Horizon event, which I believe was 2 issues. But in this first issue, we do get introduced to the comic introductions to Globulus, I think Nemesis Enforcer, and Pythona. So that's whose hand you see there scratching out the Autobot logo. This one came out in January of 2007, well after their movie appearances in G.I. Joe the movie. But Andrew Wildman did this cover. Pretty cool. Actually, is that correct? No, I don't know if that's the correct artist now that I'm looking at it. It looks like it was signed by somebody else. But with that said, we're going to keep going because I don't want to belabor the point any longer. This is a 1 in 20 incentive, which, while it may not seem like the highest ratio incentive, that was the highest for this particular book. And with a 17,268 print run estimated, thank you to Comicron for that number, we're looking at maybe 843 copies. Once again, this is not an exact math, an exact science. This is the best information we have available. So we're making an estimate based off of that. It's not to be taken as gospel. There is no hard number or any exact number that we can pull out. So this is the best we got to give us a broad idea of how many could be out there. With that said, we can look in the census to see how many people have graded over the years. And for this book, not that many. Not many at all. We only have 3. We have a single 9.6, a 9.4, and a 9.0. There's not even a 9.8 of this book in the census as of yet. Who knows what the future will bring, but right now, 3. With that also said, you want to know what the market's going to pay for a book like this? I'd like to know too, because we didn't have any recent sales. So in the last 3 months, none have sold on eBay. But if you were looking for one, you can find all of 1 copy listed, and that 1 copy listed is seeking $2,499.99, or best offer. So if you want to take a shot at it, $2,500 is the current and only asking price available right now. So based off of our criteria, as you all know by now, if there's going to be more or multiple copies out there, we'll just call the book hard to find. But if there are 1 or none, we will call this book a ghost. So for this particular book, we ain't catching this one. We're still going to have to chase it because there's only 1 out there and it's asking a big number. So with that said, that's our first book for the day, our first new one. Before we move on, I just want to remind any of you out there who haven't tried Whatnot yet, now's your chance. Use the link below in the description below. That's my link to sign up. Get yourselves a free $15 by using that link. $15 to spend on whatever you want with whomever you want. No strings attached. You get to try out the app, you help out the channel, and you get yourself something nice, so you really got nothing to lose. Now, with that said, let's move it on to our next book, because I do have another new one for you before we move on to some throwbacks. And this one is an oddball one. This is a book that many of you probably don't even remember. This is Nowhere Man. Where are you at? There you are. Nowhere Men. I'm sorry. So Nowhere Men came out a while back out of Image. This is actually a convention edition. This is a convention called Thought Bubble. To give you a little bit of background here, I'm going to throw this out here. I pulled this information from a great website. It's a good resource for you any out there. Recalled Comics has this. And they were saying how the Thought Bubble variant was available through the art festival in Leeds over in England back in November of 2012. However, there was some shipping delays and whatnot. So the book was made available at stores because it didn't quite make the convention, apparently. So it was available at the Traveling Man comic book stores in the north of England. And this was, from a while back. Anecdotally, apparently this book was limited to 500 copies. So that's all the estimated information we have. Again, Recall Comics, it's a good resource, a lot of fun information there. With that said, this particular book, cover done by Nate Bellegarde, November 2012, as I just explained. It was from that Thought Bubble event, that Comics Art Festival back in 2012, limited to 500. There are a decent number of these actually in the census. Not a ton, but 82 is not a bad number. So with that, there's 47 9/8s, 23 9/6s, and then a handful of others rounding out that 82. But if there's 500 it was limited to, 82 of them have already been graded. That's not bad. That all said, it's been 13 years now since that art festival and this book came out, and I'm still not seeing a lot of movement on it. So if you went to look at how many sold recently, none of this particular copy have sold in the last few months. Also, if you wanted to go and buy one, there are currently none listed for you to purchase at the moment. So, with none listed, this one joins that Black Horizon book as another book to chase, another ghost to chase, because there are none out there right now for you to go and pick up. So, with that, we're already 2 for 2. Moving on, I got a third option for you as far as new releases go. Well, not new releases, but new books that I haven't covered yet. And then we'll get to a couple throwbacks just to kind of round things out. This new one's a weird one. This is a weird one. That's why I tried to go with this show. Last time out, I did a whole She-Hulk focus. This time out, I just jumped to a bunch of different things. So we had a 1 in 20 incentive. We had a convention exclusive that never made it to the convention. And next, I have a mail-away book for you. A mail-away book from our friends at Fruit of the Loom. Maybe some of you are wearing these right now. Maybe that's your underwear of choice. I don't know. But with that said, this book was a mail-away copy that you could get for picking up your underwear. This cover we're showing here is the Batman side of things. It was a flip book. I'll show you the other cover in a second. The art was done by Joe Stanton and Sal Buscema. I never pronounce names right. Sorry. Apologies for mispronouncing names, but back in 1999. So we're looking at, over 25 years now, 26 years ago, you could mail away to get this comic book, which I believe was also on the smaller end. It wasn't a full-size comic. I believe this was more on the mini side of things for this mail away. But once again, it was a flip book. You can see you can flip it over. You got a Joker, Too Many Joker story. On the other side, we did have a Superman story here as well. So 2 for the price of 1. Pretty cool, right? As I said, this was a mail-away book, came out. Don't know how many copies they made or printed. I mean, I'm not sure how we would even find that information at this point. 26 years later, how many copies of this mini comic did Fruit of the Loom make or order to be printed? Who knows? But we can look at other sources like CGC and see how many got graded in the census, and this book has been graded. It has been graded. Not many, but there are 4. A whopping 4 in the census. We have no 9/8s. We have a single 9/6, a pair of 9/2s, and then way, way down, there is a 5/0. Those are all 4 graded copies of this flip book from this Mailaway Fruit of the Loom program. You want to know how much people would pay for this book? I'd like to know too. So you can tell me if you know how much people would pay for this, because right now, nobody bought any in the last few months. So no idea what the price could be on this thing right now. Also, if you want to get one, I don't even know what people are going to ask, because just like our last book, there are 0 out there on the market as far as eBay goes. I know there's a lot more markets than eBay, but again, I have to limit myself somewhere. So that's the market of choice for many of us comic book collectors. So that's where I generally look and do my references when I say there's none available. I don't know what's available at your LCS. I don't know what's available on every app and online store out there either. So who knows? But those of you out there who want to go do some online digging, feel free, go ahead, see if you can track some of these books down, because you may find yourself a nice little hidden treasure out there. With that said, just like the last book and the one before it, with no copies available, keep chasing it. Keep chasing that ghost, because we got none available. But those are my 3 new ones for this week. Hopefully you enjoyed those. Before we move on to my throwbacks, I also want to remind any of you out there who are in the market to get some new storage supplies for your books, you know, your bags, your boards, your long and short boxes, CGC boxes, top loaders, whatever you need to keep your comics and collectibles safe. You can use the link, but definitely use my code RENA10 over at BCW and save yourselves 10% off your entire order, because you got to buy that stuff anyway. You might as well save some money while you do it. So there's really no harm in saving a few bucks. So use that code RENA10 to get yourselves 10% off at BCW. Now, with that said, let's move it on and take a look at what I've got left for you. Not a lot, as I said. Don't got a lot left. We got a pair of throwbacks for you. So my first throwback I'm going to hit you with was a book from 3 years ago. Maybe 3 years and a week. I believe I did that one on January 15th of 2022. I'll put the link to the old show down below so you can check it out. That was an all Stephen Platt edition episode of the Chasing Ghosts. So all Platt books. The one I decided to take a look at again was this one here, this Vampy book, because I think a few of these have actually moved on the market recently, causing me to look back and be interested once again. So here's my throwback to Vampy. Now, there are 2 versions of this book. One has like the little logo and the issue number 12 on it. That is the limited edition Stephen Platt book. That one's limited, I believe, to 1,500 copies. So 1,500 of that one. However, this one I'm talking about here from 2001 is the holofoil edition. While the picture doesn't really represent it, it's kind of glowy, shiny, looks like foil, holofoil cover. So you'll know it. You'll know the difference when you see it. Apart from that, there also is no issue number 12 on the front of the holofoil edition. It's almost a virgin, but it still does have the Vampy trade dress. Don't know how many they made of this one. That number was not made available for me. Haven't found it anywhere out there, so I don't know how many they were supposed to print, but most likely less than the 1,500 they did of the regular edition. With that said, there still is a healthy number of this book in the CGC census. So when you look this one up, and again, some people will list the regular as holofoil, and it's not the case. Check for the trade dress, check for the issue number. Like I said, it should look more like this one with no issue 12 of Vampy on the front than it's the holofoil. If it has issue 12 on it, that's the regular. Here's for the holofoil edition. We have 19. I mean, not a ton, but still more than I would have expected for a book like this, considering the last 2 books I showed you had 4 copies apiece, I think, right? But we have 13 9/8. It's a holofoil, so it's going to have that tougher kind of cover and cardstock that would hold up a little bit better than just your regular old paper. So it would really need to take a hit to do some damage. But still, 13 9/8, 2 9/6, 3 9/4, and it looks like a 9/2 rounds out all 19 that are currently in the CGC census. Even so, a lot of these books move and are not graded, evidenced by these sales that I saw. There's more than these. I just grabbed the 3 most recent to kind of give us a ballpark idea, and people will pay about 200, 166 at auction, 219. So around about 200 bucks they'll pay for this raw if you can track one of these down. And those sales were what, January 25th, January 6th, and then going back into December. So a decent amount of volume with 3. And again, there's more that sold in the last 3 months that I didn't list here. I just wanted to limit the amount I show you. Just again, for ballpark idea, 200 bucks thereabouts for a raw copy. Listed for sale, I also found another 3 copies out there. So there are options, and there's actually more than these 3. These are just the 3 I decided to pick to show you that 9/8 asking 600 bucks. A 9/4 is looking for 400 bucks. And then we have a raw that's looking for 300 bucks. So again, just giving you a sense of what the market is asking for these. There is actually more than these. I think there's like a half a dozen plus thereabouts on the market right now. So with that said, we're not going to call this one a ghost like our last books. This one we'll call hard to find. So hard to find is still not easy. It's not going to be everywhere. And I hope you also notice the difference in how many copies were when the last time. I'll cover that for the next book. But with that said, we've only got 1 left, and that last one is coming up next. What is it, you may ask? Well, again, to keep things weird and to keep things kind of off kilter, I didn't go with the regular old incentive or anything like that. Just like I said, the last book was some sort of limited edition holofoil. Can't even get the number. The next is another store exclusive that we do have a number for. So, with that, this is a very popular book. I still want one of these very badly, but I do not want to pay these prices. So, what's the book? It is Black Cat #1, the Le Chat Noir. This is the D variant for Black Cat #1 from the J. Scott Campbell store, because J. Scott Campbell does a lot of exclusives, especially for titles like Black Cat, where he can really show off his skills and his his expertise in this, drawing the female form, I guess, if you will. That was what he's best known for. So with that, I do want this book, but as I said, it's hard to find and it's expensive. This came out in June of 2019 from the store, limited to 1,500 copies for this particular cover. There are signed copies, signed versions of this book as well. I'm only in the market for the regular one. I don't technically need a signed one, but many of these are signed because that's how they came from the store. And with that said, there are a good number of these graded. Now, when I looked at this originally back in January 2022, I think it was like January 22nd of 2022, there were 218 in the census at that time. Since then, in the last 3 years, we now have 340 for this book in the census. So that's a huge jump. Sorry, I didn't cover that with the last book, but I try to, when I do the throwbacks, I want to give you some context. So in the last 3 years, from 218 up to 340 graded. So a lot of folks got this book graded over the last couple of years, to the point where we have 319 9/8s, 319 9/8s, 15 9/6s, and then a handful of others. With only half a dozen that go from 9/2, 9/4, and then it looks like we get an 8/5 out there. So this book does sell. So we do have some evidence of sales. I'm only going to show you a couple to give you context. And you can see here, one just sold on the 27th. It was covers A, B, C, and D from the J. Scott Campbell store, all sold raw. Best offer accepted on $1,500. Granted, the other 3 covers do not get anywhere close to this particular book. This book would be the gem of that bunch. The A, B, and C's, I mean, you're looking at maybe 60 to 80 at best for the other ones. And those are also limited covers and also exclusives and do okay on their own, but nowhere near this book. As you can see, a signed copy sold on the 21st for $1,000, and then a 9/8, one of those 300 plus 9/8 sold for $1,200 there on New Year's Day. Those are for context. Now, are there copies out there if you want to buy them? The short answer is yes. And there is actually more than what I'm showing you here. But once again, for context, this is what's listed. A CGC 9/8 Signature Series wants $2,200. 9/8 Blue Label looking for $1,750. I get it. One just sold for $12. This one's looking for $1,750. But hey, people can ask what they want to ask. And then we got another 9/8 looking for $1,775. Again, there's copies available, but that's way above where I would be comfortable paying personally, which is why I don't have one of these yet. I don't know how I'm going to get lucky because, again, it was a store exclusive. So this isn't the type of book you're just going to find in a regular back issue. You're going to find dollar bin digging because, again, the method in obtaining the book isn't the norm, and it's not going to be overstock from some shop to another. Just saying. So with that, we know where we're putting this one. We can get it. It's just going to be hard to find and generally expensive. So with that, both of our throwbacks we'll just call hard to find. But to recap the rest of the show, we can take a look at all the books I listed here. And what I showed you that was new, all 3 of them were pretty tough, considering there's only one out of the 3. There was one of the 1 at 20. They wanted $2,500, and then no copies of Nowhere Men from that convention over there in Leeds, or the Fruit of the Loom Mailaway. So with that, all 3 of these I can comfortably call ghosts as of today. Again, as we do this show, it's a moment in time. It's a snapshot, which is why I'm doing some of the throwbacks now, to give you a sense of context as years pass, how books and things may change. But with that all said, hopefully you enjoyed that, and hopefully you enjoy everything else here on the channel. until next time, I'll have some more fun books, some throwbacks to mix in for you. I know I do this show kind of semi-regularly, but what we will do regularly is the tax show. So make sure you come back tomorrow for the tax show, because we have a very special guest joining us early start time tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern time to help with the time difference from our friend from across the pond, who will be joining us on the stream at 8 p.m. I know I'm going to keep it a little bit secret for a little bit longer, but you'll find out soon enough. And with that all said, I will see you all later with some more content. All right. Bye.